Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. We have hit the year-end review for the Dangerous Jobbers podcast. But before we go forward, we just want to acknowledge those wrestlers who passed away this year. And then we're going to do a quick moment of silence, and then we'll go with the regularly scheduled program. Now, with that being said, wrestlers who have passed away in 2024, Paul Vachon, Ice Train, Asahi, Ole Anderson, Virgil, Sika Anoa'i, Afa Anoa'i, Aki Bono, Kevin Sullivan, and Sid Vicious. Our thoughts and prayers with their families. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
People have been asking me to be the best in the world. Why, Eddie, why? I'm better than you. My eyes are red. I was in the back smoking a joint with Van Dam. You know it.
All right, man. I am your boy, Stevie Jobber.
I'm your boy, Dangerous Duke.
And welcome back to the Dangerous Jobbers podcast, putting wrestling over one podcast at a time.
Yeah.
And we have made it here to the year in review. It has been a very, very long year. And with all the downs, we also have a lot of ups. We'll talk about the best of times, the worst of times, the ranking. We'll talk about the list, the feuds, the OMG moments, and just all the different takeaways we have from the year. And we can all sit back and roll back the footage together on one pod before New Year's. Just saying goodbye to 2024.
Saying hello to 2025.
So where do you want to start? Where do you want to start? We got a few different topics on here, and I feel like we can go in no particular order. I think order. I feel like the OMG moments might be the longest one, so maybe we'll not do that one right away. But where do you want to start?
Let's start with feuds.
I like that. I like starting with feuds. Do you have a favorite, undeniable favorite feud for you of the year?
Undeniable. I wouldn't even call it an undeniable, just a slight edge out on top.
Mhm.
But if I had to pick one, just specifically one, just because of all the all of the bad laundry that went in with it, I'm gonna have to go with Punk and McIntyre.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to.
yeah, I
I'm
had
gonna
that on
have
my
to.
short list too.
Punk and McIntyre definitely, because from the moment they saw each other, it was just like, all right, we're on go, and there's
Mhm.
nothing that's off limits. Not even the families, not the dogs, not the bracelets, nothing. And Drew just did such a good job at making himself seem like such a dick, and
Yeah,
and it just played out very well for the both of them. So I mean, as far as feuds go, I think that one pretty much had the top spot for me.
yeah, it was a great play on what obsession can cost you,
Mm-hmm.
and just how far you're willing to go for your own closure, and whatever form you feel like you should get it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just a very interesting dynamic between the two with the bracelet and Drew's just obsession for wanting to make sure Punk isn't ever a thing. Uh, and it just, I don't know, they took it to a level I didn't think they could take it to. Drew being the most unlikely at first, I think, on the short list of really big important feuds for Punk, but it proved to be exactly what Punk needed, I think, to
Yeah.
really stand on his feet, get a couple really good matches under him, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of shoot for the moon right away, which is not an approach I think many of us thought they would go with. It was a lot of gimmick matches from the rep, and usually, the older guys don't go right for the gusto so quickly. So yeah, that one really took me. I liked one for the year for me was down in NXT when Wesley broke up the Rascals as part of the TNA NXT uh whatever you want to call it, trade off, working
Crossover.
relationship, crossover. Wesley breaking up the Rascals and having that back and forth with Zach Wentz and really kind of putting to bed MSK and putting Wesley in a new light, a new believable, like in a really poetic way. It was the only way to really create him as an individual, was to
Mm-hmm.
put the rest, what he came from, what everybody knew him from, and completely break away and establish himself as something else.
Kind of just put that nail in the coffin.
And kind of put that nail in the coffin and give Zach Wentz some closure as well, because he come off as X Division champion, I think, as a result of how good he was doing in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Of two guys just trying to establish themselves as good enough on their own, despite the connection between the three of them. And it really brought some closure to Zach Wentz to be able to come back to NXT, and after being like shunned away for reasons that ended up being irrelevant. Uh, to me, it elevated Wesley to a level. It elevated Zach Wentz to a level. It allowed us Rascal fans to say goodbye to what was, and it just held one of those rare NXT really good storytelling moments that reminded
Yeah.
me of Triple H times. Just very, very deep, very, very layered, very
Mm-hmm.
in that aspect of time. Give me another one. Is there any other one you had on the list?
I had Swerve on there, Swerve and Hangman.
Mhm.
Ironically enough, for as much crap as I talked on Hangman all year, but their feud was just more for the moments that it brought us, because every time they had a match, their match was like a legitimate barn burner, whether it was just a regular singles match or that crazy it wasn't a death match, but it was like, I forget the exact name that they called it, but that match they had with the tax and with the cinder block and everything else,
Yeah. It
they
might as well
managed.
have been a death match.
They gave us some really crazy moments this year, and that in particular was one of the craziest. So I'm definitely keen on giving Hangman his flowers. For as much as I shit on him all year, he did great, and he made some great moments happen. So I'm gonna give Swerve and Hangman that nudge there.
Yeah, we talked about how much of a you know a total drag Drew had to paint himself to be, but real kudos to um, Hangman for just becoming one of the biggest haters that like ever lived. Like that really was his role this year, which
That
I
was his
think
2024.
that was his 2024. It's just being a huge hater, a drunk hater. Like he reunited with his boys, and then he still had no identity, and so he just saw this guy that he thought he was better than getting a shot, and he didn't like it, so he started hating.
Mm-hmm.
Went up against him a second time to try to prove a point. Didn't really go the way he wanted it to. Started hating some more. And it just got deeper and deeper and deeper. Even when he escalated to new heights, you just started hating more and more. Like it was terrible. Like you were just
Mm-hmm.
the biggest hater all year. But it painted a great story in the end, all the way up into burning Swerve's house. So that was a very big one. I gotta get this one in. For MLW, Alex Kane versus AJ Francis, the Battle of Bomaye. Just because I felt like it was the only like really good story Kane had gotten this year so far, outside of what's happening right now, him feuding with the New Horseman. But I mean, he had to wait all year after the Bomaye fight, after Bomaye Fight Club battle with AJ Francis to get this. So this for me was one of the biggest one for Kane this year, and it kind of felt like the first legitimate AJ Francis story where he was taken seriously, and he proved to be a lot better than previously thought for anyone else. So that's a good one to throw in there for MLW. I had a very short list of most improved players, but I think top of the list for me was Jey Uso.
Yeah, me too.
Just leaps and bounds in, I don't know if it's the combination of camera, like the different camera choices, the different promo choices, if it was the international, like whatever it happened to be, or a culmination of all of those things. At one moment, you could just tell that Jey was becoming larger than life in response.
Yeah.
And it was undeniable. And kind of from that point, they rolled that energy all throughout the year, all the way up into him becoming the IC champion. So he's definitely on that list. But I know you had a couple more names than that.
Yeah. One of the names I had was, crazily enough, Big Bronson Reed. The dude, fresh off of coming back from Impact after he was already released, he had his momentum as Jonah Rock, and then they brought him back and really didn't waste any time with him in 2024. They kind of just let him be a monster for a good portion. Like, I want to say the whole second half of the year, he kind of just turned it up and went crazy. So he definitely increased his stock compared to last year. So I'm going to have to give him his nod right there and say Big Bronson Reed is definitely shortlisted for most improved.
You know what's crazy is I was worried about Bronson for a little minute. When they were having that little writing debacle where it was kind of a triple threat mid-card loop of nobody really getting a championship match, but all three of these guys kind of fighting each other and getting involved with each other. And there wasn't really a benefit to it, but it was just something for all of them to do. And yeah, I kind of got worried that Bronson was just getting lost in the shuffle. So it's interesting the way that he kind of broke out of that mid-card spot in kind of I don't want to say overnight, but in kind of like a split second of getting the way the show works.
Yeah.
Which is becoming a funny rule for anybody watching wrestling these days. If you watch the way the show works, at least in WWE, you kind of get to break the cycle of whatever you're going through. And Bronson's cycle was doing really good in matches, but not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
And everyone else that seemed to be climbing the ladder was fighting all over the place instead of following the rules. So Bronson in one night broke the cycle by going, okay, I need to make an impact. Well, everyone else around here is just fighting each other. I want to pick a fight. And he picked a fight with one of the biggest guys you can pick a fight with and instantly broke the cycle. It's funny. That was a really interesting one where we weren't really sure where that was going, and then instantly he became a threat. Very good one. Very good one, Bronson Reed. Give me your best pay-per-view of the year.
Well, I only have one. My favorite pay-per-view of the year for this, I'm only picking one, and call it bias, call it favoritism, whatever you want. It is favoritism because it's my choice and I don't care. So I'm going with WrestleMania 40. One, we were there.
Yeah,
So
we were
we know
there.
how
We
we
were
know how
there.
electric that was. Number
Yes.
2, in Philly. Number 3, the matches that they gave us were ridiculous.
Mm,
Even the theatrics that were involved, like in person, it might
mm,
not have looked as crazy on TV. I don't know
mm.
how everybody else perceived it, but in person, it was wild to see some of the stuff that they pulled off. Like the Rock,
And we had great seats, but go on.
like the Rock's entrance standing in the fire, that looked ridiculous in person.
Hmm.
Having Lil Wayne introduce Jey Uso,
Hmm.
that was ridiculous in person. Like it was just the Rhea Ripley entrance to
Hmm.
kick everything off, ridiculous. It was just everything from start to end, and then the Sami Zayn match too with Gunther.
Yes, yeah.
Like
Man, was that a catalyst for a lot of things.
that was an amazing pay-per-view. Even
Mm.
on TV, watching it back on TV, I still get goosebumps. But that was the pay-per-view of the year for me. Quote me, at me, send me an email. That's my pick.
I have Mania on my short list. I have Mania. I think we have to say France. I think it's as odd as it is to say. I think going to France for Backlash was a moment like after WrestleMania that felt just as big as as WrestleMania on some levels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because of nothing more than how big the crowd was,
Yeah.
like how loud, how different, how more into it the crowd was. It was, we talked about it, the best crowd of the year. Um, and it just elevated everyone to a different level. Like that was the pay per view where you realize, oh, Jey Uso is on another level now. At least to me, that was the pay per view where like the only time this year AJ has really gotten the most flowers possible. Um, sad to say,
It's
it
true though.
was it was Cody's first like big defense, and it was against none other than AJ Styles. It just felt big, man. It felt big, and the crowd did all of that great work.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, talking about the NXT TNA thing, Slammiversary this year, I felt was great for none other than the Rascals being able to reunite. And Masha going back with Jordan Grace and winning the title. Um, they just had a great card, and the fact that they were able to weave in NXT in there made it that much better. So I gotta put, and they've been knocking Slammiversary out of the park kind of every year now.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing a really great job. Um, on top of that, Battle Riot MLW, because I had to fit MLW in there. That was the pay per view that they had the Battle for Boomaya at, so I'm putting that in there.
Yeah.
And I think SummerSlam was really great too.
SummerSlam was very good.
I think SummerSlam was really great because Nia became champ and Gunther became champ, and it was kind of a validation to King of the Ring, but also we knew it was kind of time.
Yeah.
It was time for a lot of the tables to shift, and they
LA
really
Knight became
packed
champ.
out. LA Knight became champ. Like that was the night where they moved all the chess pieces.
Yeah, literally.
This is what it is going forward. This is how we're setting the game up. We've made our big plays for the year.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how it shook out. Yeah.
Basically.
Mania is like the culmination, and then SummerSlam was like the reset. But yeah, I felt like they packed out the card, and they crowned all the new champions that we knew were going to hold the belts for most of the year, if not the rest of it. Yeah, and it felt bigger than it normally did, which is weird to say. And now next year it's going to be 2 nights. So
now we're gonna see how that turns
yeah,
out.
I think that's what does it too. We knew this was the last SummerSlam that this was going to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Here on out, it's going to be WrestleMania too. You know,
Basically.
crazy. Before we get to some other stuff, let's get to the worst moments of the year. We didn't have many, but let's talk about the things that sucked really quickly.
I'm gonna kick this off, and I don't know who enjoyed it when it came out, and I don't know who enjoyed it after it came out. I don't know who enjoys it this day as we're recording it, but AEW airing the All Out footage with Jack Perry and CM Punk. I don't know what their goal was. I don't know if they were going to try to bury WWE or bury Punk, but that whole situation was just embarrassing. Like, it was almost cringeworthy to watch. It wasn't even. I watched it and I felt uncomfortable. Like, this isn't even good. Literally everything he said happened is what happened. And then you said it didn't happen. Like, he that's literally what transpired throughout that whole thing. Punk aired his side and said what happened. Then you said, no, that's not what happened. Here's really what happened. You aired the footage that looked like it came from a flip Nokia phone. And it was exactly what he said happened. So it was like confusing. What was the point? That's like breaking a plate and then saying, no, you didn't break the plate. This is what happened.
Yeah,
this shows you breaking the plate.
This was a weird thing to experience upon the clean slate. Because it was like, man, for all the credit I was trying to give you, this really kind of puts a demerit. I don't mean to say it like that, but like it really puts a stain on your record. Like, to this day, I feel like everything they were trying to accomplish, I'll never agree with basing the catalyst for change in your universe on something someone from another company said about their time in your company that doesn't put you in a good light. Like, I just don't. I will never agree that is the play to go with for major character change. The agenda of let's just be the bad guys he's painting us to be and air the footage that looks like exactly what he said and use it to make ourselves the bad guys to get nobody but us over. I can't tell you why it worked, but I will never agree that was the way to go.
But it still didn't even fully work.
It didn't, even with Okada, even with getting Hangman back, it still was like, but it still is a vehicle to just get you over. It is the Vince McMahon way of doing things that I think directly leads to one of the better moments of the year, which is Moxley. But we'll get to that later. I will never agree with that being the decision. Airing the Punk footage was just not the right thing to do. Like, I don't know what you were trying to achieve, but it didn't. And it's weird because it kind of ruins Jack Perry's thing, because it's like this is so weird that I'm going to use this. If anyone's seen the newer Freddy Krueger movie that didn't have the actual Freddy in it, this is a weird way to go, but just stick with me here. The movie's not bad, but they take a twist on it that anybody that's seen Freddy before could have told you. The kids go the whole movie thinking Freddy is framed for doing all of this bad stuff. and he's coming back for revenge because they killed him wrongly. And the twist at the end of the movie is, no, Freddy's just a terrible freaking guy, and they killed him, and he still made a deal with the devil to honor your kids. Like that's the deal. Like the parents were right. Like, no, he's really a bad guy. And I felt like that's exactly what happened with Scapegoats, that Jack Perry. Like all the legitimacy in your character was that you were blamed for something that didn't go the way that you said it went, the way that it's being portrayed. And then after you're able to survive in Japan off that character, Punk says how it went down. And your whole character being based on that's not how it went down, to expose the footage and it like be how he said is like, oh, so no, you're a dick. Like you're a dick. Like you're not the scapegoat. So now are you rocking it out of irony, or like are you still like
to be rocking it out of irony for however many months later is a little weird if you ask me.
But it was a vehicle to bring you back and get you over and get you right to the top, which is exactly what happened. Like the character change, I get what they were trying to do. I get the nuance of it. It's like Chris Jericho learning tree. Like I'm just gonna be what you think I am, but it didn't do anything for your characters, but legitimize the fact that you're only out to book great for yourselves. Because that's exactly what happened. You just got a bunch of your guys over again, which is what you always do. So I mean, even though it looked
it's not like you needed the footage to do that anyway. If you wanted to, you could have just shoved them down our face like
the whole point.
Everybody
like
else does.
Then
we still would have called you a dick.
Nothing but hurt you. It did nothing but hurt you, and it was a direct shot back at somebody who was already winning. Like,
don't put makeup on the pig and call it a princess.
You felt like the Pistons after Jordan was already kicking their ass. Like, you didn't have to go out like that. Another one of the worst moments of the year, we talk about Samantha Irvin leaving.
Oh, good Lord.
Not necessarily Ricochet, but Samantha Irvin leaving. One worst moment because it was bad for us, right?
Yes.
But I think worst moment because of how the internet wrestling community took care of their feelings during the situation, to put it lightly.
Oh man. I have a question about this. I'm raising my hand like I'm in school, but how is it that we lose Samantha Irvin, but in the midst of losing Samantha Irvin, the one who's the most butthurt about it is Ricochet? That was my question.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Ricochet leaving and like being so into the internet. I don't know.
In the midst of losing Samantha Irvin, Ricochet's the one out here catching the ricochets.
He flew off the handle a couple of times, but not as bad as they say. But he's flown off the handle a couple of times.
No.
But Samantha Irvin leaving really touched a nerve for him. But I think it touched a nerve for him because it touched a nerve for a lot of us who were saying a lot of things we probably shouldn't have been saying. I was not one of them, but I saw a lot of the very mean comments people were leaving online, man.
Look, I think part of it might have been
very salty.
Part of it might have been, now hear me out, tell me if I'm reaching on this. Maybe he was upset that people were more upset that she was gone than they were that he was gone. Is it possible that maybe he thought in the back of his mind, I'm the one putting my body on the line, doing these crazy flips, taking these crazy spears from Braun Breaker every week, trying to sell and make it look as amazing as I can, potentially injuring myself in the process. Only for the people to be more upset that someone who goes Chelsea Green is gone, and they're more upset about that.
I mean, I don't know, man. I think I want to give Ricochet credit because I'm a Ricochet fan.
I mean, look, I
I
am
think
too.
he's feeling a lot more freedom. He has a lot more time on his hands. And I think he's felt into a weird wormhole where he has too much time to look at comments that he's never had before. And it just rubbed him the wrong way. And he hasn't quite hit that point where he's like, I'm going to get
Yeah,
off the internet. You know what I'm saying?
it's probably
And
the
so
first
that
time.
being a thing, and then Samantha being able to be freely on the internet all the time and express herself, having to hit this clash that is kind of a result of your man being salty on the internet for too long, like created this weird friction that got way too out of hand. And eh, I
I
just,
will I
yeah,
will say
it's bad.
it made my list. It did make my short list, but not for the Ricochet reason. That was just an Easter egg to throw in there. It made my list because I was more like, damn, she's leaving because she wants to try other stuff and WWE won't allow her to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come
That is
on.
salty too. That is
Like
salty.
let the woman venture out and try something new. So I mean, I don't necessarily blame her for wanting to leave and try other
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
take a bet on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, we just lose out on Samantha. That was the hurt piece. That
Yeah,
was
that
it.
does suck. That part really sucks. Um, One of my last ones, because I just keep going back to it. AJ getting injured. One of the worst moments of the
Yeah.
year for me.
Yeah.
Oh, the things that could have been. Oh, the things. They had really preserved Michin and the Good Brothers while AJ was away. You know, sending them down to NXT, keeping them on a good winning streak, maintaining some sort of momentum. And then AJ gets here finally, you know, peak shape AJ and gets injured first match back, I believe.
Yep.
And oh, so sucky. It felt
Yeah,
like
that
he was
was
gonna have such a better run. They were giving him so many flowers. It really pains me because I know how Triple H does things. I know he cares about momentum that people carry and keeping them important. And he never really had a chance to just do what he wanted with AJ.
mm-hmm.
And he was going to be such a big player, you could tell. And to get injured right away, you just never know what plans were supposed to pan out for that. And we'll
Yeah.
never get those stories. We'll never get those stories now.
Well,
It's a shame.
don't say never.
But right, you never say never, but it won't be for some time.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the OMG moments, and then we'll finish up with company rankings and get out of here. But let's talk about all of the moments through the year that were special to us from all over.
Well, first things first for me, the moment I was excited for, just like everybody else, because we kept seeing these clips pop up, we kept seeing the vignettes, we kept seeing the QR codes. So the Wyatt Six, that debut alone, the way everything had, I think I more enjoyed the build up to it than I did the actual unveiling. Not to say the unveiling was bad, because the unveiling was really good.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was really good. But just the QR codes and everything else, and the trying to get everybody to play detective for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna lie, it kind of made me feel like a kid again. Like it took the 27-year-old and brought him back to being like 9 years old again. And he's like, okay, how do I do this? Let me look this up. Let me see what this means, and then try to play detective. It was
Mm-hmm.
pretty freaking awesome. So I'm gonna go with the Wyatt Six debut. That was really good for me, and then everything that transpired after.
Yeah, I won't even take too much away from that. That was a super moment, and I think they just the only thing I'll add is that I feel like they've been continuing to do the best work they possibly can,
Hmm.
even up to this point, with all the storytelling and who they aim at and how they're making it work from the ground to what it possibly can build up into. Um, Kudos to just everyone involved and everything about the rollout. It really brought back those nostalgic feelings, but kept it new. Um, One of the best ones for me, Paul Heyman going into the Hall of Fame. That Hall of Fame speech in
Yes.
Philly, him giving one of the best speeches you've heard in how long, and you knew it was gonna be like that because it was Paul Heyman, and I didn't know he was gonna cuss, but we should have known he was gonna cuss. I mean, it's Philly, it's Paul. They gave him a live mic, and I think Triple H even advertised it that way, like the best way to do it is to give Paul a live mic in Philadelphia. Um,
Hmm.
and I think he delivered a super moment, super moment. So yeah, that was one of the big ones for me. Give me another big one.
This is where
Okay.
it really gets difficult.
Yeah.
If I gotta pick one, I'm gonna go with Moxley going into beast mode, man.
Yeah.
Like Mox just literally turned it on in 2024 and destroyed and just started destroying everything. Like he basically took the pillars and took the foundation and took the front door and just ripped everything apart and made it his own. He like kicked in the door, walked in your house, put his feet on your couch, and just rubbed his feet all in the couch. Did it, made it his own.
Yeah. I appreciate the rogue pillar of the shield. Um Mox has really done a great job of being the heart and soul of AEW through and through, to the point where every time you pick somebody else, and I'm just getting this epiphany here, but like you if it's a thorough pattern of like every time somebody failed for AEW, they put it on the shoulders of Mox.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where like the champ they had wasn't cutting it for whatever reasons. Well, I don't want to say wasn't cutting it, but they were getting to a point where with Danielson's career and Swerve's run, where we had to tell some different stories with Swerve, and they couldn't have him being so dominant all of the time. And Danielson was on his way out, and we never really got to give him those flowers. Somewhere in the middle of that, we talked about the muddy storyline with the EVPs. We talked about the muddy booking. We talked about, everybody being stuck in the middle, nobody being where they needed to be, nobody breaking out, all of the injuries, all of the weird ways that people's stories were going. Jay White's being caught up in the Bang Bang Gang. Not to say it wasn't great, but just to say that what is Jay White doing at that level in that sort of a situation? You know what is Darby doing after Sting? We were supposed to have something. Where is that now? You got Jack Perry just being gifted the title. Great for Jack Perry, but what is it doing for anyone else?
Shut your ass up, Jack Perry.
And Mox really came back with like this Thanos energy. And he started the Marvel universe from Infinity War.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I don't know, it changed the trajectory of how good AEW television was at the time. At least
Hmm.
for me. Um I'll give you one more and then we'll head to company rankings.
Hmm.
Um the debut of the Bloodline for Solo Sikoa.
That, yeah.
I
Mhm.
gotta go the debut of Jacob Fatu, the debut of Tama Tonga, um, the debut of Tongaloa, even though
The
wasn't going
miscalculation.
that great. Yeah, them and just all the things that were wrong with that, but to that credit anyway. Just the building the foundation of the new bloodline
Mhm.
was amazing, amazing, amazing to see. Just things you never thought could happen happening all at once.
Yeah.
And the fact that all of them, except maybe Tangaloa, have all caught on to like an extreme is great. It's all you
Yeah.
could really ask for. Um, so that's another great OMG moment for me. Um, Duke, why don't you start first? Give me your company rankings, 1 to 5 this year.
I'm gonna go 5-1, not 1-5. I'm gonna go
Yes,
five.
yes, 5 to 1, 5 to 1.
All right. So in fifth place for me, I'm gonna go with New Japan. Usually a little bit higher on my list, but I feel like this year New Japan took a dip.
Mm,
Not because of anything they were doing specifically. It's just they were losing a lot of people, and a lot of people were going elsewhere. So that kind of like dropped them down as much as it did. Fourth place, I'm gonna see this was tough, interchanging 4 and 3, but 4, I'm gonna go with MLW.
mm,
MLW, I feel did much better than New Japan as far as booking goes, like the style of matches. I was more entertained with their people,
mm,
so I'm gonna give MLW the nod at 4. Number 3, and this is strictly because of one person and the fact I didn't even mention anything of his. Now that I'm looking at my list, it's kind of baffling. But number 3, I'm going with Impact,
mm,
TNA. I'm
mm,
going with TNA because TNA really improved. They did a lot of great stuff with the WWE. They did a lot of great stuff. They did a lot of great stuff with Dolph Ziggler. They did a lot of great stuff with. I'm trying to think who else was it with Jordan Grace coming over, with
mm,
Joe Hendry coming over, the
mm.
Rascals.
Joe Hendry.
They did a lot of great stuff. So I'm
Mm,
gonna I'm gonna say Impact and TNA at my number 3. Number 2, AEW. It was a clean slate year, like you said. There were some things that they did that kind of hiccuped me a little bit, but they did more good than they did bad.
mm,
So that's always a good thing. And I actually liked some of the matches they put together. Their stuff with Swerve, the stuff with Jay White, um, the MJF return, the Adam Cole things. Samoa Joe even had a great year with them. Mark Briscoe doing his hilarious stuff. I feel like this was just a great year for AEW, more than people even think that it was.
mm,
And then number 1, WWE come out on top. They had some hiccups too this year, but far less than AEW, I want to say. They put on quality pay-per-views. Most of their pay-per-views were very entertaining.
mm.
They definitely had some of the best storylines this year. I would argue the top 2 or 3. And
I
then
would argue.
And then everything that they're doing now, even at the end of the year with Roman coming back and the new bloodline and the old bloodline, they're doing a lot of great stuff. And it makes me very excited for 2025 and when we go to Netflix and everything else they got in store.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give mine real quick. It's not much different than yours. I At 5, we have a difference, and then I think we're the same pretty much the whole way down for a lot of the same reasons. And number 5, instead of New Japan, I actually have sorry. I was starting to get a 45. Shit.
It happens. It's okay. We can blame me because they came in my room first, and then your door started creaking. Can't hear you.
Got it.
It's okay. It happens.
Good
thing is we know where to start off at.
Yeah, my top. I was doing my top, my 5 to 10, my 5 to 1. Oh boy. All right. Let's start from 30.
Okay.
That about it. It's
It happens. I think it stopped. I think it was around like the 46 mark, 47 mark, something
right.
like that.
I'll give you my 5 to 1 real quick. It's a lot like yours. My number 5 is different. Instead of New Japan, I really felt like GCW had a great year this year. They've been putting together bangers of cards, but the way they've been mixing in all of the indies collectively has really stood out to me this year. I know it stood out to another good friend of ours, Reckless Figs. They've been able to take guys from MLW, from NXT, from TNA, all over, and put them in these unique fights, especially the blood sports. But GCW overall, in these matches that I really, really want to see. I never find myself looking at a GCW card and being uninterested.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I never looked at a GCW. I don't think I've ever saw a GCW card this year. And granted, I'm like a super wrestling guy. Like, this is what we do, right? But I've never seen a GCW card and been uninterested all year. I've been like, oh, that's a great card. I want to see that. The spots when they've been able to fit in Akira, the spots when they've been fit in Masha, Charlie Dempsey, MVP just had one with Josh Barnett himself.
Shayna.
Everything with Shayna, in that same breath, Marina Shafir, like the people they've been able to just couple together in these matches are just a dream every single time. So yeah, GCW had number 5 for me. As a matter of fact, split second, I'll even put them at number 4 just because of that. Because I'll put MLW at 5.
Okay.
Only because I didn't enjoy all of the stories. They weren't all super compelling. The top things to me after the fight for Bumaye was that Caesar's now daughter, that was former rival, is having a baby. And they made that a major storyline with and that to me was just like, I don't know, great soap opera stuff. Because we love Caesar. But that being one of the major stories and reasons I'm interested in MLW should not be a thing. So for that reason, I'll give them 5. GCW, not as reliant on stories, but the dream matches, I never looked at a bad card. And I know Cordona's doing things over there. I know I've seen JBL down there. I know anybody who's anybody is touching GCW at the moment. And that's what makes them so important. Number 3, same TNA. Just had a great year. Just made some big stars, established some big stars, reestablished stars they already had. Showed their versatility, crossed over into WWE, and a crossover that worked to everybody's benefit, that had different stories in the men's and the women's divisions. Spotlighted a certain star they couldn't get over in TNA as much at the time. Really just did wonders. So for that reason alone, TNA, just great year. AEW, of course, at number 2, same. Swerve really put it on his back. I'll put it that way. Swerve becoming one of the greatest, hottest commodities in wrestling really is the reason AEW is number 2 here. Swerve really put it on his back and drove it to the top. Through all their creative ups and downs, having one guy that can kind of really hold the mold during the rebuild sometimes is all it takes. And then of course WWE at number 1. I mean, not to say we're WWE guys, but they don't really miss. You know, Triple H, God's gift to wrestling. You don't really like to miss. You know, he gives the people.
You did very, very well.
You know what I'm saying? This is, what do you want? I'm gonna give that to you. I feel like that's what you want. The guns? We'll get the guns. You want Nakamura? We'll give you Nakamura. You want LA Knight winning the US title? We'll give you LA Knight winning the US title. What do you want to see? I am here to serve. I thought he did everything that he could do within the time that he could do it. He got over as many people as he could within the time that he could. And yeah, WWE just really put it together this year. They stood out.
They really, definitely did.
And I think going global the way that they did really showed UFC's impact on WWE, because that's a UFC thing to be all over the world like that for every pay-per-view. And why not? Why not WWE? Why not? And I think this year they had a lot of why not moments. Why can't
because
we do that?
Can. Because we
Let's
can.
do it. Whoever told us we couldn't? Let's start from the concession stand and go all the way down to the ring. Why not? Who said we can't? Why wouldn't he? Let's do it anyway. You know, there was a lot of that this year, and it all kind of worked. They ain't missed a step, really. Maybe here and there, but not big enough for us to care.
Yeah, not that bad.
Anything else from the year you want to get out there that you thought was really special before we wrap this thing up?
Big ups to Nick Nemeth, because I didn't include him in this episode, and I really should have. He had a phenomenal year as well. Taking that big gamble on himself, becoming the TNA heavyweight champion, helping TNA reestablish themselves and build themselves back up. So he's got to get some love shown his way too.
Yeah. I put that out there. Some great moments I think we had as wrestling fans through the year. Me personally, going to Wale's Wale Mania. I know it was the day before you got there. We couldn't get you in, but Wale Mania was cool. Seeing Zilla up there with the Tongan twins, who still are not here. One of the one things I didn't get this year.
What are you waiting on, Triple H?
Where's my Christmas? No, I'm kidding. Just seeing all the different people interacting with each other on one stage was pretty cool. Even though I will say that for Shelton Benjamin to be getting an award there that year, for the audio to not be playing on his video was very amateurish for how many years they're supposed to have been doing this. Do better, man. Shelton's supposed to get his flowers. You can't even hear the people talking, bro. What's happening right now? Anyway, that was a top moment for me. AJ getting Cody was a top moment for me. Kevin turning on Cody, top moment for me. Being at freaking WrestleMania, man.
Yeah, being there.
Good seats. We weren't all the way up in the freaking bleachers, man. It was cold as hell because we were night one.
Hey, you know what's even crazy to think?
Yeah.
We were right underneath Mrs. Undertaker.
We were right underneath John McCool, man.
And The Rock's mom.
And The Rock's mom. Come on, man. Great seats. And if they come back, I don't know that we can do it again, but maybe it'll be a little warmer.
Definitely not Vegas.
But yeah, it's just a great time. Just some great moments through the year, some things I never thought I'd see in a million years. Danielson getting choked out twice. They let him die. They literally murder people on AEW now. That's like a thing. I don't know what's happening. There's madmen in AEW. All the things happening in WWE. They just continue to create moments you thought you'd never get in your life. Yeah, just a great time to be a wrestling fan, man. Great year for wrestling.
And thank you, Bailey. Just gonna leave it there.
Tap in. If you know, you know. That's what I'll put you to say. If you know, you know. No, I'm kidding. But with that being said, that's another thing. We should have talked about most improved players. Somehow Bailey's made that list too. For one of those reasons alone. But that being said, I'm your boy Stevie Jobber.
I'm your boy Dangerous Dude. Damn.
And we hope you've had as much fun listening to this as we have had delivering it to you. It's been an hour. If you've made it this long, you probably liked or subscribed or hit the link or whatever by now.
Right.
Or you could have just threw this on and been partying in the background. That's fine too, man. We're having a good time. But if you can, hit the like, leave a comment, do something before we get out of here because we had a good time together. We've been who we are. I guess here's to the next year of wrestling.
Yes.
And if you made it this far, please stay up, stay blessed, and Duke, as always,
stay dangerous.
People have been asking